All right, I think I'm gonna get started. So welcome all to the Rhode Island Department of State's Sunshine Week webinar series, day 2. I'm Jess Signa, and I'm the Rhode Island Department of State's Director of Data Analysis. I'll be emceeing these webinars throughout the week, and I'll be presenting today. The mission of the Rhode Island Department of State under Secretary of State Greg M. Amori is to serve Rhode Islanders by promoting transparent government, supporting businesses, and strengthening our democracy through a commitment to civic engagement, secure elections, and empowering voters. We have many tools. We have many tools at the Rhode Island Department of State to accomplish this mission and make government more accessible to Rhode Islanders. We're excited to share them with you throughout this year's Sunshine Week. So just a few housekeeping items before we begin. The session is being recorded, and we will share a copy of that recording to everyone who's registered. It's also going to be available on our YouTube channel in the upcoming weeks. If you'd like to use closed captioning, you can click on the CC button on the bottom or maybe the top of your screen. You can configure that feature to your needs. And then if you have any questions for me or anyone else today, you can put them in the chat and we'll either live answer them or we'll answer them in the chat. Anyway, we'll get an answer to your questions. So, as you may know, Rhode Islanders have several opportunities to vote in elections this year, including the presidential preference primary, which early voting starts today. Therefore, today's session is about elections and voter turnout, including the Rhode Island Department of State's voter turnout tracker during an election cycle, our historical voting information, such as voting method and demographic information. I'll demonstrate our mail-ballot drop box locator and show you how to find your legislative districts on a map and even get a PDF copy of that map if you choose. I'll be presenting, and we're also joined with Kathy Placencia, who is our Director of Elections here at the Department of State. So while I have the privilege of building many of these tools, none of them would be possible without the amazing vision and attention to detail for data and information that Kathy and her team has. And likewise, each of Rhode Island's 39 local boards of canvassers contribute their time and energy into the creation and maintenance of the underlying data in these visuals that you'll see today. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in and I'm going to share my screen. All right. Great. So what we'll do is you can either follow along or you can just, on your own computer, or you can just watch. But this is the Department of State's homepage, sos.ri.gov. And under elections and votings is where you'll find most of the tools that I'll go over today. So we're going to click right there. And this is what the page looks like. This is your voter information center. There's a lot more here than just our data tools. There's information about upcoming elections, how to update your voter record, how to track your mail ballot, how to request mail ballots for upcoming elections, and a list of other really fun and important tools to learn about elections in Rhode Island. So first, I'm going to show you about our Dropbox locator. So some folks register to vote by mail, and what they'll do is they will get that mail ballot and they will vote it, and then they have lots of different options to drop it off. And this tool allows them to figure it out. So you can type in an address or a location. So let's look at Coventry. And this is going to zoom to certain areas in Coventry. Oh, look at that. There you go. Coventry, Rhode Island. That's what we're looking for. And we can see in Coventry, Rhode Island, there's a couple of different locations. And in Coventry, Rhode Island, you drop your mail ballots off in one location and you can vote early in another location. And we have that distinction here. So you drop off your mail ballot at the Coventry Town Hall. And this tells you what time the drop box hours are, tells you who the municipal elections clerk is, gives you the information to get to them, that website if you have any other things, and even a little image to show you where the drop box is for your mail ballot. And some locations across the state are different. So if a dot is orange, that means that it just accepts mail ballots. If it's this teal, it means it's just early voting. Or Coventry's neighbor is West Warwick, another municipality here in Rhode Island. And the city and town hall in West Warwick accepts both mail ballots, and it's where voters go to vote early. And there's a picture for West Warwick. Okay, moving along. We are going to jump into our district map downloader and place where you can explore. So when we're voting, we know that we have House and Senate lines. We know we have precincts, which are the places in which we vote. And we know those lines sort of overlap. And you can see here, this map sort of outlines, it looks a little bit like a spaghetti map of where are all the lines. So the purple lines that you see are House districts, and the green lines that you see are Senate districts. And you can put in your address and you can figure out where, so let's type in. Let's type in this address and you can see this, click there. See, it's in Congressional District 1. We use these scroll bars here on the top of this lookup. House District 4, Senate District 5, and it's in the city of Providence. You can see how the map highlights. And we can come over here. Let's go to Senate District 15. And you can download a PDF of that Senate district if you choose. And you can see this pops up. Really great map to show you all of the precincts in that district. Another really fun part of this tool is you can come over here to the layers. You can come down and you can see how right now this looks like an eye and it's crossed out, it's the visibility. You can choose to add precincts to this map. And now we can see all of the precincts, and this gets a little busy. So we can do things like close off everything else if you'd only like to see the precincts. And then you can scroll in and see the precinct lines. And this is where make up the smallest voting blocks. And it tells people which ballot style they may have, so exactly who they're voting for, and which location they're going to vote in. We can also just select by municipality if we choose. You can, let's say we'd like to look at Jamestown. Do not select. Oh, it is highlighted right there for us. Does anyone have any questions so far? I see Ariana is putting the links in the chat. Thank you so much for doing that, Ariana. Really appreciate it. Okay. So next up on the list here, we're going to navigate to our registered voters. So we talked a little bit about where voters can find places to drop their mail ballots. We have talked a little bit about where the districts are and how to sort of get a sense of what district you might live in and who your officials might be. And next we're going to turn to look at who are our registered voters. Where are they? How many we have? So back on the Secretary of State's homepage for the voter homepage, under data and information is registered voter tab. So we're going to click on this. And this takes you to a tool that is updated monthly, and it goes back in time. So you can see here, March 2024, I was recently updated on March 1st. And we go back to voter information all the way to July of 2018. So there's a lot going on here. So let's step through it. So this big number right here is the active status registered voters. This is 93% of everyone on the voter roll is considered active status. The two other statuses are inactive and pending, and we'll talk a little bit about them later. You can see that this is the party breakdown. So the most voters are actually unaffiliated. 47% of all Rhode Island voters are unaffiliated as of March 1st of 2024. We can look at voters in each city or town. So we can look at North Smithfield. We can see that a little over 9,000 voters are registered there. And if we click on these tabs here, or if we click on the tabs here, we can actually get this broken down by the current precincts. So you can see for, in this table in the center, you can see for North Smithfield, we can see our Democrat, our Republican, or unaffiliated, and then our total registered voters for Smithfield and North Smithfield, and broken down by each of their precincts. You can also use this button here to clear all of your selections and go right back and get started. On the side, we have a few other really fun selector tools. You can search by all Republicans in the state, and again, look at this by each city or town and its precincts. You can select all, or you can go back here and do clear selections. We can select by our House or our Senate seats. And we have both the reps' names and the district numbers. And these are the current reps for those districts. We also have it by Senate, and again, the Senate names and districts. So we were looking at Senate District 15 before, and here we say we know Senate District Dean is in Pawtucket and in Providence. Actually, the border crosses between both, and we can know the precincts that make up. So this, the voting precincts that make up these districts. So we know that Pawtucket has these precincts fall within Pawtucket, within Senate 15. Likewise, Providence, just a few of Providence's precincts fall within Senate 15. And then finally, if we want to determine how many voters are in each congressional district, we can do that by clicking these buttons, and the numbers up top change. There is also a second page here where we can compare these registration statuses over time. So if you click this button, we're switched to a second page. And now we see that this is our active status voters. These are our inactive status voters. And what the difference between these two are is inactive status voters are voters who have received or who have, we've attempted to mail them, and that mail has come back as undeliverable. And Kathy can jump in and correct me if I misspoke there. And these folks are still eligible to vote if they go in and determine that, yes, they do live at that address, and yes, they're still eligible to vote in Rhode Island. And then the last pool of voters who are eligible to vote are pending voters, and they will become eligible after a certain period of time, and then made active status. And so you can see here over time how the registration status, going back to March of 2020 all the way through today, how registration status have changed over time. You can click on each bar and you can see how it highlights, and then the same selector tools are available on the side here. Okay. So we know a little bit about Rhode Island's voter registration over time. So now let's head over to the history of voting in Rhode Island. And that is under our historic voter turnout here. So again, back on vote.sos.ra.gov, and I'm back over to historic voter turnout. So if I click there, this tool has several different visualizations within it. So there's a lot of information. There's actually 4 different visuals sort of hidden beneath this. So we will step through them one by one. Okay. All right. So we know that we have people who are registered to vote, and we know we have people who turn out to vote. And turnout in these tools is very specific. This is anyone who has voter history on their voter registration record. This is not how those people voted, meaning who they voted for or how we voted as Rhode Island. This is about who was turning out. So if we scroll down through this tool, if you click on any of these tools, you can see here over time, so this goes back to 1970 all the way through 2022. These are general elections in Rhode Island. And the dark teal is those who voted, and the light teal are those who are registered. So you can see the sort of the difference over time of voter registration growing in Rhode Island. And at the same time, voter interest in voting in general elections has mostly increased over time. What's really interesting is that we can see here we have percentages going back to 1970 about turnout. We know that in 2020, this was the highest election turnout that we have had in the past several decades. 64% voted, and really more so, over 500,000 Rhode Islanders cast a ballot in that election. Now we can scroll down and look a little bit at where these voters were, where they turned out. And we know that it ranges where folks live in the state, and we know that turnout ranges where they live. So here we have 2 maps that compare the 2018 general election and the 2022 general election. And what's really fun, I think, is really fun about these maps is that we see here, we're going to click on it to interact. We see here, we have each municipality, and we can compare across each point in time. So we know that in 2018 in Gloucester, 53.1% of voters turned out for the general election versus 53.3%. So just a pretty small point of change in Gloucester over time. And you can sort of click on different municipalities and the data will pop up. And then let's say we wanted to scroll in, and we can scroll in and we can see, again, we can see precincts. So even at a more refined level, how folks voted over time. Now, let's see. This isn't a great, I'm going to do this example right here. So we can see just a slight difference about, just a little note about precincts. If you remember from the municipality example, I had the change listed here. We don't have that listed here, but because you can see this is relatively the same geography in Cranston, yet the precinct has changed. And so we can see we have in 2018, this was 0712, precinct number 12. And in 2022, after the 2020 election, we did redistricting across the country and in Rhode Island. We can see now this same place is 2018. So that makes it a little difficult to compare. So that's why I don't have those comparison numbers there. but you can still get the turnout for each of those precincts across the state. Any questions so far? I think Ariana's still putting things in the link. Great, thank you. All right, so we know a little bit about where Rhode Islanders are voting and how they're voting. And we know how those things are sort of changing over time and even within municipalities. But who are these voters? What is it about them? So what we have, the next visual is about voter turnout by generation. And so the reason why we classify by generation is because those things stay the same over time, right? We do this, but if you're born in 1965 to 1980, that makes you a Gen X. I'm a Gen Xer, so we like to remember them and not to forget them. And they're always going to be that generation. So it makes it really easy to compare over time. How is generation X coming out to vote? You can see that in general, this is the turnout. At the top here is total turnout. And then we have the share of turnout by generation. So we can look, let's say Gen X is this orange color, and Gen X actually stays pretty consistent over time. 25% of the total Rhode Island population are Gen X who come out to vote, as compared to boomers, who are this largest group right below them, who it's actually growing over time, 41%. And then we have a different way of looking at the data, is actually within that group, how do folks vote. So we can see at the bottom here, in this is 2022's election, we know that while Generation X was 25% of everyone who turned out to vote, we can see that 46% of Gen X voters actually voted. So 40% of all Gen X people voted in that election in 2022. And then we can compare. So you say 46% of Gen Xers voted, but just 28% of millennials voted compared to 22 Gen Z voted. These patterns are pretty consistent across different states across the country, where the youth vote is often not as high as the older voters. And pretty much the same selecting tools here. You can do this by looking at primaries, so who turns out to vote in primaries, and then who turns out in presidential preference primaries. So we know presidential preference primaries only happen every 4 years when there's a presidential election. So right now we only have 2016 and 2020 data, and after April, we will be adding 2024 here. And we can see we have pretty low turnout for the Gen X folks. Only 13% of us turned out to vote in the 2020 election. So the final tool in this is voting methods. So we know where the voters are, we know who the voters are, their generations. So tell us, how did they cast their votes? We scroll down and we look. Again, we're clicking to interact, and we can see that, okay, so this is a little different setup than the earlier ones. We have general elections are here, primaries are here, and then presidential preference primary is here. And then on the side, again, all of our cities or towns, or even our precincts. And then we also, you can just look at it by generation. So we can see the light blue are those who voted by mail. The teal is the voted early, or this darker blue is voted on election day. You can see, as we know throughout earlier in voting history in Rhode Island, 2016 and 2018, majority of people came out to vote on election day. We know 2020 was a special year, so many people voted by mail or voted early rather than vote on election day. And then we come back to 2020 and we see people really like having that choice of voting by mail or voting early or by election day. And you can look at that for the three different types of elections. And a note on 2020, we know that all Rhode Islanders were mailed a mail ballot to vote in the presidential preference primary in 2020. And so that is why that is so high that year. But still, almost 20% decided to come out on election day. And if you'd like, you can click here and you can see how the numbers change and how Gen X decides it wants to vote for those elections. Great. If I don't have any other questions, I'm going to jump over to our turnout tracker. So as I mentioned at the start, today is the start of early voting. And every election, every statewide election that's happened in the past few years here at the Department of State, we've done a voter turnout tracker. And what this is, it's a tool that tracks all of the mail ballots, all of the early voting, and all of the election day voting. And we update these numbers each day. And then on election day, we update it each hour. And so it's a way for folks to know the rate of how many people are coming out to the polls. It's really helpful to get a sense of who's voting where and at what time. It's really helpful for lots of different constituent groups. It's helpful to our cities and towns to know a little bit about how they can set up where folks are voting and how much resources to put where. And we know the press loves it to sort of keep tabs on how turnout is going. And really, I think the public loves it too, just to sort of get a sense and get excited about how many people are coming out to vote and how to engage that. So right now, this tool will go live either tomorrow or Friday. We just need to wait for enough data to get in the tool. Make sure it's working before we go live with it. But I am going to show you a retired one that we have. That way you can get a sense of what it looks like and you can learn how to use the tool. So if it were live, this is what it would look like. This is the retired tool for last year's special election. And this is the homepage. So we will see this is our total turnout page. You'll see how many voted on election day, how many mail ballots were returned to the Board of Elections, and everyone who went early to their city or town hall or other location, and total turnout. So you can navigate this tool by drilling down. Using this tool, you can look at it. So this election, we had several different types of elections, and so we have this drill down, and then you can see again by municipality and then the precinct within that, and you can sort every column, so we can see total turnout, where was total turnout highest, where was total turnout lowest. And if we want to reset, you can go right there and reset. So the fun really comes, at least for me, when we go over to, let's look at this just by election day. So this will obviously only be live on election day, and this number will update throughout the day. And you can see we start right at the beginning of the day and we go almost to the end of the day. And the reason why we do that is because we actually do not manage election day processes, that is the Board of Elections and the local boards of canvassers. And so we want to make sure that we shift focus over to turnout and to totals for voting and how the folks voted and who's winning or losing elections over to Board of Elections. So we end right around 8 o'clock on those days. Next, you can navigate to a mail ballot turnout. So we look at how many applications were submitted. We look at those that are approved, how many are actually getting in the hands of voters. We mail here from the Secretary of State's office, but sometimes those voters go in person, and that's why there's this disparity. So it's not that we didn't mail them or didn't get them their mail ballot. It's just that they had another means to get that mail ballot rather than just it physically being mailed to them. And then we know how many folks return those ballots. And then we can drill down into each municipality and each precinct. And we can keep tabs on which municipalities had the highest applications going forward. And then because we also have early voting in Rhode Island, we can then click over here on the early voting and see the same thing. So we can see each day who is voting and how they're voting. We have a total. We can look at it each early voting location. And again, we can drill down. And one more note here is this early turnout by day and time. And this is a really, looks like a wild map where we have for Mondays. So each Monday that there is an election, because we know our early voting period goes over a few weeks. And so this is how do people vote on Mondays and how many people vote Mondays or Tuesdays at the noon hour, and how many people vote at the 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock hour. You can see over time. And we know that we have some municipalities that stay open late, so we can see how they're voting and late and where that's happening. You can look at it by specific days. You can also look by cities and towns. Okay, and if you want to get back to the homepage, you can click Turnout. And there's one more piece on this tool that I'd like to show you, which is it's another map, and it shows you how to locate those precincts. So if you want to click on, let's say you want to vote in Barrington 0101, you can click there and it will zoom right to that precinct or that precinct. Or you can do the reverse and you can click in an address and it will get you there. We have some more links and really interesting pieces of information for you there. Okay. Any other questions? Any questions? No. Okay. So few closing points. This information, the data are available to be purchased. So let's say that you don't want the high level data analysis that we've already done for you. You really want to sort of dig into it and learn more about the information for yourself. Under data information, again, back on votes.sos.gov, you can click on publications and forums. And then on this page, there is a voter file request form. And it's a pretty simple form to fill out. It costs $25 to purchase a voter file. It comes with the voter information, the voter registration information for active, inactive, and pending voters, and also information about their voter history for the ones that are in that voter reg file. And you get that file, the initial one that you purchased, and then 3 more times over the course of the year in which you have purchased this file. And then finally, just a word about the Board of Elections. While we do not manage this data, but I just wanted to point out because some people might be interested. The Board of Elections actually has a ton of data on election history and results. And so this is where you'll go to the elections.ri.gov, And you'll get to this board elections page, and then you go to elections and then previous election results. And this is where you can find how people voted in previous elections. So you can download Excel files, you can download PDFs of the data, or if you are a pretty sophisticated data user, there are options to download text files. It comes with a data dictionary to do some rather intensive data analysis in the data tool that you choose. That is all I have for today. I just wanted to say again that most of those things that I presented today wouldn't be possible without Kathy and her team. So just a special thanks to Kathy for all the support to make those tools happen. And I wanted to open it up for any other questions or if folks had anything they'd like to add. You're welcome. I'm so glad that you could join us. It's really important that we share these tools and this information. We have so much sort of hidden, almost hidden on the site. And so it's really nice to shine a light on them, particularly a day like today. Kathy, did you want to say anything about the election today?
Hi. I don't only that early voting has started today, but I don't have that information, and I can, if you give me a second, I can let you know how many people have actually voted early today.
That's a great idea. So we know that was, a lot of information, everyone, but we really appreciate the time to spend with us to go through all of those links. It's really overwhelming. So I encourage you to pop on our website at vote.ri.gov and play with those tools yourself. And of course, if you have any questions about them, if you see something that you think is missing, or if you see something that doesn't make any sense, you just want to talk about it in more detail, myself or Kathy or her team, we're always willing to chat with folks about that. And I'm always looking for people who use it to tell me what they think about using it and how we can maybe improve upon it. So feel free to send comments about the tools.
Hi. So we've had 183 check-ins so far statewide, but we've had 8,572 voters apply for a mail ballot.
Wow. Should be a steady clipping. We'll see. It's just the first day, and April 2nd is the day of the actual primary. So great. Well, thanks. If I don't have any other questions or comments, I think we'll wrap up. So thank you all for participating again. We hope to see you for the rest of the week. We have Stacy DeCola tomorrow, who will be bringing you open government and lobbying information. And then on Friday, Kristen Cordero is going to be demonstrating our business data hub, which is over 5 different tools on how to look at our business data, not unlike some of the tools you saw today. So thanks again, everyone, and we'll talk soon.